And now that we are done talking about the UFC 307 title fights, we will transition into the rest of the card. Let's start with the featured bout of the main card. Mario Bautista gets the biggest win of his career and extends his win streak to 7 over the King of Rio, Jose Aldo. But it doesn't come without some controversy. 38-year-old Jose Aldo just continues to prove that age is just a number, man. Not only has he retired and come back, but he's competing with young prospects, not other older veterans like himself. Young prospects. He came back from retirement at UFC 301 in May of this year and beat Jonathan Martinez very convincingly. And here at UFC 307, just 5 months later, goes toe-to-toe for 15 minutes with Mario Bautista, and in the striking realm at a distance, had his way in this fight, landed the much more damaging, impactful shots, had the much higher volume. However, Mario Bautista comes out with the split decision victory. He utilized a lot of grappling, and not necessarily on the ground, because the fight never went there, but in the clinch. He held control time up against the fence, did his little damage and shots there that apparently to the judges meant more. I thought Jose Aldo won this fight, and 95% of the verbal sparring community on X thought the same. But I don't want to take away from Mario Bautista. He's on a 7-fight win streak. Wins over Ricky Simón and now Jose Aldo back-to-back. He will enter the top 10 of 135 pounds at just 31 years old. He's entering his prime right now, 15-2. It's not his fault that the judges got this wrong. I don't like throwing out the robbery word. I don't think the co-main event was a robbery. I don't necessarily think this one was, but this one is a little bit closer to a robbery than the co-main event. Is that fair to say? Let me know. Which fight do you think was closer to a robbery? The co-main event or this fight here? Regardless, I felt that the opposite fighters in both won the fight. I thought Raquel Pennington won, and I thought Jose Aldo won. So it does stink to see this for Aldo. He should be 2-0 in my opinion, coming out of retirement. Instead, he's 1-1. But again, at 38, proves that he can still hang in there with the best of the best. Truthfully, I've been calling for this fight for years, and I'm definitely going to call for it here after the result of this one. Jose Aldo, Dominick Cruz, 2 OGs of the lower weight classes, 2 first ballot Hall of Famers. Please, UFC, make that fight happen. It just means so much to have those 2 legends face each other before they hang up the gloves. And for Mario Bautista, coming off of his 7th straight victory, entering the top 10 come Tuesday morning, what can we expect to see him do next? I think a fight against any of the above fighters, Rob Font, Song Yadong, or Marlon Vera. Those are 7, 8, and 9 in order. Give him any of those 3, and I think it makes for a very, very fun fight. So give me Mario Bautista versus someone between, even you could take it up to number 6 in Henry Cejudo. Anyone from Cejudo, Vera, Yadong, and Font, and I think you can't go wrong with the stylistic clash. Next, we go to the middleweight division where Roman Dolidze got a first-round TKO by doctor stoppage. They ended the first round, but the second round did not start. It was against Kevin Big Mouth Holland, in a fight that was pretty exciting in the first 5 minutes. On the feet, Kevin was getting the best of the exchanges. Roman Dolidze lands a takedown and was landing some very, very damaging ground and pound strikes. However, as you go back to that fight, it seems as though Kevin Holland potentially broke and or dislocated some ribs on his right side that enabled him, or disabled him, I should say, to continue the fight into that second round. Therefore, Roman Dolidze gets the victory, has now won back-to-back fights in 2 different weight classes. Short notice at UFC 303 against Anthony Smith, and here against Kevin Holland back at his home of 185 pounds. The number 10 ranked middleweight Dolidze was on a tear heading into 2023 before he got halted by losing to Marvin Vettori and having a very, very close loss to Nassourdine Imavov. That was a majority decision. Now, the middleweight division is on fire at the moment. Dricus and Sean are all but confirmed to be next. We have Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev facing at the end of this month. Nassourdine Imavov just beat Brendan Allen last week. Caio Bahaio is coming off of a huge win over Jared Cannonier. The top 5 is absolutely moving right now. So what does that mean for Roman Dolidze, who sits at number 10? Could he get a rematch against Marvin Vettori, who hasn't fought in quite some time? Could he face Jared Cannonier or Brendan Allen coming off of a loss? Could he even launch himself all the way into fighting Israel Adesanya? The division being booked up and busy right now is essentially a detriment for Roman Dolidze, who I believe now will just have to wait until the end of 2024 to see how everything falls into place before he gets his early 2025 matchup against someone in the top 10 of the middleweight division and maybe in the top 5. And quickly for Kevin Holland, first and foremost, I want to see him heal up, as we were on to what was going to be a pretty exciting fight, in my opinion. Can't help when an injury like this occurs and those transitional movements down there on the ground. We saw that even happen with Anthony Pettis versus Dustin Poirier back in the day. But for Kevin, I just truly feel he should fight at welterweight. I feel like that weight class suits him better, suits his physical frame better. I know he's long and he's rangy, but he's not the biggest of guys. Look at Roman Dolidze. He looked like a 205-pounder when he fought Anthony Smith, but he is a true middleweight. So what does that say for Kevin Holland? Go back to the drawing board, take the rest of 2024 off, come back in 2025 hungry and ready to go at welterweight, a division that, let us not forget, he's ranked number 15. And next we move into the pay-per-view opener where Kayla Harrison, number 3 in the women's bantamweight division, got a unanimous decision over Ketlen Vieira, the number 2 ranked fighter in this division. Kayla now 2-0 since joining the UFC, first with a submission over Holly Holm at UFC 300, and now a decision win over Ketlen Vieira. Now, this wasn't the most one-sided, dominant, decisive victory that we've seen from Kayla Harrison. However, she did own the bigger moments in this fight, had the huge takedown and ground and pound in round number 1, wasn't quite able to continue that trend in rounds 2 and 3, instead had to rely on a lot of clinch control up against the fence, and to her credit, held her own on the feet against someone that is pretty dangerous, Ketlen Vieira. Ketlen was 8-3 in the UFC dating back to 2016 heading into this fight and had fought the who's who of the 135-pound division. So while it wasn't this crazy big performance from a minus 1,000 favorite that was Kayla Harrison, it was a fight where we had to see her go through some adversity against a top 3 fighter and come out on the winning side still. And I think that has all but earned her the number 1 contender spot in this division to take on the newly crowned 2-time champion, Juliana Pena. Probably in the first quarter of 2025, I would say March or April, if I had to guess, is when we will see those two square off for the belt. And then we will see what comes from there. It may just depend on who the winner is, because as noted in the title fight recap, if you haven't checked that out, be sure to do so. Amanda Nunes has expressed interest in maybe coming back from retirement, but only if it's against Kayla Harrison. She didn't respond directly to Juliana Pena when she called her out in her post-fight interview, and Kayla Harrison, they showed her side by side. It was all but set up on the broadcast, Juliana versus Kayla Harrison, and instead Juliana completely dismisses Kayla, only focuses on the retired Amanda Nunes. You could see the frustration and annoyance on the face of Kayla Harrison. But regardless of what that call out was for Juliana, we know that this is the fight that's going to be next. 2-time Olympic gold medalist, 2-time PFL champion Kayla Harrison versus 2-time women's bantamweight champion and Ultimate Fighter winner Juliana Pena, early 2025. 30 years old, right in his prime, Joaquin Buckley. Come on, people. Put the respect on this man's name. 5 fights in a row since committing fully to this welterweight division. Out of those 5, 3 of them are via finish, and 2 of them are against top-level opponents in the welterweight division. In 2024 alone, as a matter of fact, it started in March when he knocked out Vicente Luque, and it ends here at UFC 307 with a nasty one-punch knockout over former 2-time title challenger Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. But it wasn't this one-sided clinic from Joaquin Buckley. Instead, it was a very competitive bout that was more than likely one apiece heading into this third round before Buckley slept Thompson. Wonderboy looked very, very good in round number 1, utilized his counter-striking perfectly, caught new Mansa, Joaquin Buckley, quite a lot, as a matter of fact, in those first 5 minutes. Even had him wobbled and stunned a couple of times. Round 2, Buckley recovered well on the stool. They went back and forth for the entire round, Buckley landing the most notable shots. And in round number 3, it was pretty much of the same as round number 2, but when he exploded and landed that right hook, it put Thompson down. The first man to do so since Anthony Pettis in 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And unfortunately, kind of a similar circumstance where Wonderboy looked very good and just got caught late and ended up getting knocked out. But I don't want to take away what Joaquin Buckley did here, because it was a very competitive fight. It was a very tough fight where he had to dig through, really face some adversity here, and he comes out on the winning side, a 5-fight win streak. He's going to be in the top 10 come Tuesday morning of this welterweight division. Look ahead of him here: Gilbert Burns, Ian Machado, Gary, Sean Brady, Colby Covington, Jack Della, Shavkat, Kamaru, Leon Edwards. Every one of them are fresh matchups. Now, Bilal and Shavkat are probably going to be facing each other next for the welterweight title. I wanted to see Leon take on Ian Machado Gary. I want to see Sean Brady take on Colby Covington. Jack Della Maddalena is recovering from injury. And the only guy left is Kamaru Usman. And conveniently enough, that is exactly who Joaquin Buckley called out to face next. Kamaru Usman, Joaquin Buckley, give it to me, UFC. That should be next. Buckley can beat a former champion and launch himself into the top 3 and make it a 6-fight win streak. Kamaru Usman can bounce back and halt the momentum of an absolutely surging Joaquin Buckley. It makes all the sense in the world. Give me a 5-rounder number 1 contender fight? Question mark. Although it wasn't the most exciting of fights, I do feel I have to give a shout out here to the number 14 ranked 22-year-old Iasmin Lucindo, who has now won 4 straight fights since losing her debut in August of 2022. She's 17-5, and no win bigger than this decision over number 6 ranked Marina Rodriguez. This was pretty simple. Marina Rodriguez looked way fresher and better and polished in the striking, was landing the better of the strikes. However, Iasmin did better in the grappling. When she got Marina down, Marina looked like a fish out of water, could not get off of her back, couldn't even really get out of certain positions. That is what got Lucindo the nod on the scorecards, albeit it was a split decision, and I think you could have made a fair argument that Marina did enough during her time on the feet to win 2 of the 3 rounds. However, I'm not upset at Lucindo getting this victory, and she will now launch herself into near top 5 territory at only 22 years old. She is a very, very promising prospect at 115 pounds. Ryan Spann ended his 3-fight losing streak with a first-round submission over the veteran Ovince St. Preux, a much-needed victory for Ryan Spann, who's on the outside looking in the 205-pound rankings. Someone that I feel physically is just a specimen, has a plethora of submission finishes and knockout finishes. He is very, very athletic and dangerous. If he can just put it all together, I do feel that in a division that isn't the most stacked, in the light heavyweight division that is, Ryan Spann still has an opportunity to make a chase toward top 5 territory, and it maybe just started at 307. I want to give a shout out to Carla Esparza, the inaugural women's strawweight champion after winning her season of The Ultimate Fighter in 2014, then went on to become a 2-time strawweight champion by beating Rose Namajunas in 2022. She lost to Tecia Pennington in a very competitive, very fun fight that happened early on in the prelims, but after that loss, she hands her gloves in, puts them in the middle of the cage, and calls it a career. Over a decade plus in the UFC alone, not counting her Invicta FC experience and championship winning performances. And kicking off the card was Court McGee, a 14-year veteran in the UFC at 39 years young, still getting finishes, still getting them in the first round. He submits the Dirty Bird Tim Means via neck crank 3 minutes and 19 seconds in, ends a 3-fight losing streak, Court McGee, and still has 2 fights left on his contract. Pair that with his story of overcoming substance abuse addiction in the past. It's been quite the career for the Crusher, Court McGee. I look forward to see him finishing off his career in the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So that is it for the UFC 307 recap. Be sure to give me your biggest takeaways in the comments below. What do you think is next for the winners, for the losers? What were your biggest performances? What did you think of some of the judging on the night? Because it wasn't their best performances all in all throughout the card. Give me all your thoughts and everything in between. If you enjoyed this recap, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, where every single week I recap the most meaningful results from every single card. Heading into each card, I break down and discuss the biggest storylines and what is at stake, and I give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok. And on your favorite audio platform, you can follow there, such as Spotify and Apple, where podcast episodes release every Friday and Monday. Have a great week, and I will see you in the next video.